All right, buckle up everyone, because today we are diving deep into Unstoppable, Overcoming Fear and Embracing Growth to Break Through Barriers. A book, by the way, that you all wanted to explore with us.
It's a powerful guide, all about harnessing those things that hold us back, kind of like turning them into rocket fuel for growth. It's published by Elevate Your Mind, written by MAB.
I've got to admit, I struggle with that inner voice that's always whispering, what if you fail? So let's unlock the secrets to turning fear from a stop sign into a green light.
Absolutely. The book kicks off with this brilliant metaphor. Fear as an invisible barrier, often way bigger in our minds than in reality. And the key takeaway is that it's not about erasing fear, but understanding it. There's the healthy kind of fear that keeps us safe, and then there's
Unhealthy fear, right? The kind that makes us play it safe and shrink our potential. Like, I'm not about to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I think that's healthy fear. But turning down a chance to speak up because I'm terrified of being judged, that's the kind of fear we want to conquer.
Exactly. The book uses this great analogy of standing at the edge of a cliff. Logically, you might be perfectly safe, but your body reacts as if you're about to fall. That feeling, that physical response, that's fear. And it can totally paralyze us even when there's no real danger.
So how do we break free? Does Unstoppable suggest we just ignore fear?
Not quite. It's more about reframing fear, shifting our perspective from seeing it as an enemy to seeing it as a teacher. It sounds counterintuitive, but fear often points directly to areas where we need to grow.
Wait, so like my fear of public speaking could actually mean I crave deeper connection with people.
It's possible. Think about it. Fear of failure might indicate a need for more resilience. Fear of rejection. Maybe it points to a deep desire for connection. The book really encourages us to dig beneath the surface of our fears.
That's pretty mind-blowing. But how do we actually use fear to improve? It still feels paralyzing in the moment.
Well, that's where Unstoppable gets super practical. It's not enough to just think about it. Action is the antidote. It's like you're training for a marathon. You wouldn't start by trying to run 26 miles on day one, would you?
Definitely not. You'd start small, build up endurance gradually.
Exactly. It's the same with fear. The book suggests starting small, setting clear goals, and making a plan. The most important thing is to take that first step. Action builds confidence and proves to ourselves that we can handle way more than we initially thought.
So baby steps, instead of getting overwhelmed by the whole marathon at once. Makes sense. But what about those inevitable setbacks? I'm all about action, but I'm also, well, kind of a pro at tripping over my own feet, metaphorically speaking, of course.
That's where resilience comes in. The book emphasizes building resilience as a core skill for this journey. And it's not about avoiding setbacks, those are going to happen, but about learning to bounce back from them. It's how we handle those setbacks that defines us.
Okay, I get that bouncing back sounds good in theory, but how do you actually do it? I tend to, well, wallow when things go wrong. How can we cultivate that resilient mindset?
Unstoppable offers a framework for developing a resilient mindset. It boils down to 3 key things. Seeing failure as feedback, not a reflection of your worth, focusing on what you can control in any situation, and most importantly, being kind to yourself, especially during tough times.
That self-compassion part, that's something I really need to work on. I am way too hard on myself.
Yeah.
But there's this other idea in the book that I find super intriguing, this idea that discomfort is actually essential for growth. Why would we want to embrace discomfort? Shouldn't we be seeking comfort? It seems a bit counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? But think of it like physical exercise. Your muscles grow stronger when you push them to their limits. Avoiding discomfort actually keeps us stuck. Unstoppable argues that discomfort is a sign you're pushing those boundaries, venturing outside your comfort zone, which is where real growth happens.
So it's like those last few reps at the gym, the ones that make your muscles burn, those are actually good for you.
You got it. And it's the same with mental and emotional growth. It's in those moments of discomfort where we're stretching and challenging ourselves that we truly adapt, learn, and become capable of handling more. Now, the book goes on to explain how to turn this initial motivation into what it calls a growth lifestyle. It's not about reaching a destination, but about embracing growth as a way of life.
That sounds amazing, but it also sounds a bit daunting. How do we turn those initial bursts of motivation, that feeling of I'm going to conquer the world, into something sustainable? How do we make it a lifestyle?
It's about building habits and practices that support continuous growth, almost like tending a garden. And the book highlights 4 key pillars: continuous learning, daily habits, accountability, and reflection. Let's unpack those a bit.
Yes, please. Because I'm feeling pumped up, but also a little overwhelmed thinking about everything I need to do to be Unstoppable. What does continuous learning even look like outside of, a formal classroom setting? I haven't opened a textbook in years.
Well, continuous learning doesn't have to be formal at all. It can be reading books like the one we're discussing, picking up a new hobby, having conversations with people who have different perspectives. Anything that expands your knowledge and challenges your thinking.
So it's about saying yes to new experiences, even if they make me a little nervous. Okay, I can get behind that. But what about those daily habits? I struggle with consistency, especially when life gets busy.
It's about finding small, consistent actions that support your goals, almost like little rituals. Journaling, meditation, or even just spending 15 minutes a day working towards a specific goal. These small actions really add up over time.
And what about accountability? I know that if someone's checking in on me, I'm way more likely to stick with something.
Absolutely. It's about having that support system, whether it's a friend, a mentor, or even an online community. Having someone to share your goals with and who can provide encouragement and support can make a huge difference.
It's like having a cheerleader and a gentle nudge in the right direction when you need it most. And finally, there's reflection. I'll admit, I often forget to pause and reflect on my journey. I'm so focused on what's next that I don't always appreciate how far I've come.
It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, isn't it? But Unstoppable really emphasizes the importance of taking that time to look back and to celebrate your wins, to identify the lessons you've learned along the way, and to make adjustments as needed.
It's about taking stock of our inner landscape, celebrating our growth, and identifying the areas we still want to explore.
Precisely. Reflection helps us connect the dots and see the bigger picture, and it helps us course correct if needed. It's about asking ourselves, what's working, what's not, and what adjustments can I make to keep moving forward in a positive direction.
It's like taking a step back to appreciate the view after a long climb. I love that. What's really resonating with me is that Unstoppable isn't just about achieving some big ultimate goal, but it's about those small steps that we take every day. Those are the things that truly contribute to our growth.
You've got it. It's about embracing the journey, seeing every day as an opportunity for growth and learning, and celebrating our progress along the way. And it's important to remember that this journey isn't about striving for perfection, but about creating a life that feels fulfilling and aligned with our values.
And one of the things I love about Unstoppable is that it reminds us that we're not alone on this journey. We have each other. We have this incredible community of deep divers to support and inspire us along the way.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? We're all in this together, navigating the ups and downs of life and striving to become the best versions of ourselves. And we can learn so much from each other's experiences, successes, and challenges.
Now, before we move on, let's pause for a moment and think about this. Where were you at the start of this deep dive? Where are you now? Even just talking about these concepts, it feels like we've already climbed a mental mountain.
It's amazing how powerful even just talking about these ideas can be, isn't it? And that's the beauty of reflection. It helps us gain clarity, appreciate our progress, and identify the areas we still want to explore.
That's like taking stock of our inner landscape, acknowledging the growth we've made, and recognizing the areas where we still have room to grow. And this whole conversation has really sparked a fire in me to keep exploring these ideas and to keep pushing myself outside of my comfort zone.
That's the spirit. And Unstoppable reminds us that this is a lifelong journey of becoming the best versions of ourselves. It's not about reaching a finish line, but about constantly evolving and embracing new challenges.
And the book beautifully highlights those key elements of a lifelong growth mindset. Stay curious, embrace challenges, learn from failures, surround yourself with growth-oriented people, and practice gratitude.
Those are such powerful principles. And when we embody those principles, we unlock a whole new level of potential and possibility in our lives.
So what does being unstoppable mean to you? We've explored the roadmap, but now it's your turn, listeners, to take action.
Remember, you are stronger than you think, more resilient than you know. The journey continues, one step at a time. What's one small step you can take today to move toward your goals? Keep exploring, keep growing, and keep being unstoppable.
Okay, we've talked about fear as a teacher and all that, but I'm curious about this growth lifestyle concept. It sounds like a lot of work. Is unstoppable just telling us to hustle all the time?
Not really, no. It's not about constant hustle, but more about integrating growth into your everyday life. The book makes this great analogy. It compares it to a garden. You wouldn't just plant some seeds and expect them to flourish without taking care of them, right?
Right. You need to water them, give them sunlight, pull some weeds. So are we the garden in this analogy?
Yeah. You got it. And all those habits and practices we cultivate, those are the tools we use to tend that garden, so to speak, to help ourselves grow.
I like that, the garden analogy. But Unstoppable talks about 4 pillars of a growth lifestyle: continuous learning, daily habits, accountability, and reflection. Maybe we can unpack those a bit, because I think a lot of people, myself included, might find the idea of a whole growth lifestyle pretty intimidating.
Absolutely. And remember, it's about finding what works for you, not trying to fit into some preset mold. Take continuous learning, for example. It doesn't have to be about going back to school or spending all your free time in lectures. It's about staying curious, seeking out new knowledge and expanding your horizons.
So it could be as simple as reading a book that's, I don't know, totally different from my usual stuff, or maybe taking a cooking class, or even having in-depth conversations with people who have different viewpoints than my own.
Exactly. It's about feeding your mind new information and ideas, always challenging yourself to grow and evolve. And then you've got the power of daily habits. These are those small, consistent actions that really support our goals, kind of like little rituals that nurture our growth.
You mentioned journaling, meditation, and dedicating time to work towards a goal. What are some other examples? Like, what if my goal is something creative, like writing a novel?
Oh, that's a great example. Then maybe your daily habit could be writing for half an hour every morning before you do anything else, or setting a goal of writing, say, 500 words a day. Or it could even be committing to reading for an hour each night, just to immerse yourself in different writing styles.
Okay, so finding those small actions that line up with our big picture goals and then just making them a non-negotiable part of our routine.
Hmm.
But what about this whole accountability thing? I mean, I'm all for setting goals and building those habits, but I know I struggle with staying motivated over the long term. I need someone to keep me on track.
And that's exactly where accountability comes in. It's like having that supportive friend, cheering you on, helping you stay on track, celebrating those wins with you.
So it could be a friend, a mentor, even a coach, or maybe an online community of people who have similar goals, right?
Right. Exactly. And a good accountability partner, they won't just offer support and encouragement, they'll also challenge you, push you to step outside your comfort zone and stay committed to that growth.
It's like having a cheerleader, but also that, I don't know, a gentle nudge in the right direction when you need it, which I definitely need sometimes. And then the last pillar, reflection. I'm so bad at that. I often just completely forget to pause and reflect on my journey. I'm always focused on what's next, so I don't always take the time to appreciate how far I've come.
That's so common though, isn't it? We get caught up in the busyness of life. But Unstoppable really emphasizes how important it is to take that time to look back, to really acknowledge our progress, to celebrate those wins, and also, to identify the lessons we've learned along the way.
So it's not just about like checking things off a to-do list. It's about really understanding why we're doing those things and how they're actually helping us grow.
That's it. Reflection helps us connect those dots, see the big picture, and then, maybe course correct if we need to. It's about asking ourselves, what's working, what's not, what could I have done differently, what did I learn about myself in the process?
Wow, those are some good questions. What I'm realizing is that this whole growth lifestyle thing, it's not about reaching some unattainable level of perfection. It's about creating a life that feels fulfilling, that's aligned with our values and what we really want.
Exactly. And that feeling of fulfillment, it comes not only from achieving those goals, but also from the journey itself, from the process of learning, growing, and becoming those more resilient versions of ourselves.
And Unstoppable really makes it clear that this whole journey is about progress, not perfection. We're all works in progress, right? But what about celebrating those successes along the way? I feel like a lot of us, myself included, we're so quick to move on to the next goal that we don't really take the time to acknowledge how far we've already come.
That's so true. And celebration is so important. It's a way to honor our efforts, to really reinforce those positive behaviors and to, boost our motivation. And like we talked about earlier, it doesn't have to be anything huge or fancy.
Yeah, sometimes just taking a moment to savor a win or maybe sharing it with a friend who's supportive, that can be really powerful.
Absolutely. And celebrating our successes, it also helps us build confidence and resilience. When we acknowledge those wins, we're reminding ourselves that we are capable of achieving those goals, even when it's tough.
It's funny how all of this ties back to this idea of fear. By embracing a growth lifestyle, by continuing to learn, building healthy habits, staying accountable, and reflecting on our progress, we're essentially equipping ourselves with the tools we need to face those fears head on.
I love that. That's such a great observation. And it really brings us back to that core message of unstoppable. It's not about eliminating fear altogether. It's about understanding it, reframing it, and then using it to fuel our growth.
And the more we practice these principles, the more we build that confidence and resilience, the less power fear has over us. Now, what about this concept of paying it forward? I love the idea of using our own growth journey to inspire and support other people.
Yeah, it's a beautiful concept, isn't it? Paying it forward, it's really about recognizing that we're all interconnected, that our own journeys, they can actually be a source of strength and inspiration for other people. And that, by supporting each other's growth, we create this ripple effect of positive change.
I love that. A ripple effect of positive change. But sometimes it feels like everyone's so focused on, I don't know, climbing their own ladder of success. How do we shift from that kind of individualistic mindset to one that's more collaborative, more focused on supporting each other?
I think it starts with small, intentional actions, sharing our stories, offering a helping hand, just being a good listener, celebrating each other's wins. Those seemingly small gestures, they can actually have a huge impact.
It's like those random acts of kindness, but with a focus on growth and empowerment. And by sharing our own struggles, not just the good stuff, but also the tough times, we help to normalize the ups and downs of the journey. We remind people that they're not alone in this.
Exactly. And then, think about the power of mentorship. When we share our knowledge and our experiences, especially with someone who's just starting out, we're not only helping them, we're also reaffirming our own growth. It's like we're reinforcing those lessons we've learned along the way.
It's a win-win. And the best thing about paying it forward is that you don't need some special skills or tons of resources to do it. We can all contribute in really meaningful ways just by being present, being supportive, being encouraging.
Absolutely. And you know what? I want to shift gears for a minute and talk about something that's closely tied to this idea of paying it forward: building supportive communities. Unstoppable really emphasizes this idea that we are so much stronger together, that when we surround ourselves with like-minded people, people who share our values and aspirations, it can have a truly transformative effect on our growth.
Oh, I agree with that completely. I've definitely experienced that power of community firsthand. Whether it's online groups, workshops, or even just having that close circle of friends who really get it, who support my goals, and who understand my weird dreams.
Those connections are so precious, aren't they? A supportive community gives you that feeling of belonging. It's a safe space to share your struggles and celebrate your wins. And it's also a source of, inspiration and accountability.
Yeah, it's like having this built-in cheering section, but also like a team of advisors all rolled into one. And when you're surrounded by people who are also committed to growth, you're constantly exposed to new ideas, new perspectives, new possibilities.
You're absolutely right. And that cross-pollination of ideas, it can spark those breakthroughs and accelerate our growth in ways we never even imagined.
But let's be real for a second. Finding those supportive communities, that can be tough, especially if you're, I don't know, at the beginning of your growth journey, or maybe if you're feeling isolated.
That's very true. And Unstoppable acknowledges that building a supportive community takes effort. It's not always easy. It's about being intentional, actively seeking out those connections, putting yourself out there, and being open to forming those new relationships.
So it could be joining a book club, attending workshops or conferences related to your interests, or even, checking out online forums or social media groups where people are talking about similar things.
Exactly. And remember, building a supportive community, it's a two-way street. It's not just about taking, but about giving back too.
It's about showing up for other people, celebrating their wins, being there for them during the tough times, and also contributing your own unique skills and perspectives to that group.
And when we do that, when we engage in that reciprocal exchange of support, we create this amazing ecosystem where everyone feels empowered to thrive and to really reach their full potential.
It's like we're all lifting each other up.
Yeah.
What really strikes me is how Unstoppable weaves all of these seemingly different concepts together: mindset, action, resilience, and this whole idea of community building. It's like they all fit together to create this framework for personal growth.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? And it reminds us that growth, it's not a solo mission. It's a journey that we take both individually and also collectively, supported by other people's wisdom, the strength of our communities, and also by that unwavering belief in our own potential.
And Unstoppable encourages us to embrace that journey with open hearts, with courageous spirits, and with that willingness to step outside our comfort zones and embrace all that the unknown has to offer.
And as we do that, let's remember to celebrate each other, to be there for each other during those difficult moments, and to create a world where everyone feels empowered to live those unstoppable lives.
It's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, as we move into the last part of our deep dive, let's focus on one of the most transformative concepts in Unstoppable, the power of reflection.
Yes, reflection. It's so essential for understanding our growth and for figuring out those next steps on our journey. It's about pausing, really looking back at where we've been, celebrating how far we've come, and also identifying those valuable lessons we've learned along the way.
I love that you said pause because I think we often just rush through life without taking that time to absorb our experiences and to really integrate those lessons.
You're so right. Reflection helps us slow down, connect the dots, and really gain clarity on what truly matters. It's about shifting from that state of always doing to a state of being, allowing ourselves to process those experiences and to extract the wisdom that they hold.
But how do we actually practice reflection in a way that's meaningful? Is it just journaling or thinking about our day before bed?
Those are great starting points, but Unstoppable actually offers a more structured approach. It gives us specific prompts and questions to help us really dig deeper and gain those insightful takeaways.
Tell me about those prompts. I'm really curious.
Well, one of the most powerful ones is to look back at your starting point. Imagine yourself back at the beginning of your growth journey, maybe when you first picked up Unstoppable or when you first decided, I'm going to commit to personal development. What were your goals, your fears, your aspirations back then?
It's amazing to see how far we've come when we take that time to really remember where we started.
Right. And once we've reconnected with that starting point, we can then shift to celebrating our wins, both big and small.
I think a lot of us, and I'm definitely guilty of this, we don't celebrate our wins enough. We're always so focused on the next goal that we forget to savor those moments of success.
That's so common. And Unstoppable really wants us to change that mindset, to really make celebrating those wins a conscious practice, a habit. It's about acknowledging our effort, recognizing our progress, and giving ourselves permission to feel good about what we've accomplished.
So it could be anything from a little mental pat on the back to a special meal or maybe just sharing our successes with friends and family.
Exactly. And those celebrations, no matter how small, they help to reinforce those positive behaviors. They boost our motivation. And they remind us that we are capable of achieving our goals.
And then, of course, we can't forget about identifying the lessons we've learned. It's about acknowledging not just our successes, but also those setbacks, the challenges, because those experiences, they hold so many valuable insights.
It's about asking those tough questions. What went well? What didn't? What could I have done differently? What did I learn about myself in the process?
Those are some good questions to ponder. By being honest with ourselves, we can extract the wisdom from both the good times and the bad, and then use those insights to create a more fulfilling path forward.
And that brings us to the final step in that reflection process, looking ahead to what's next. Once we've done all that, acknowledged our starting point, celebrated our wins, identified those lessons, then we can turn our attention to the future. Set new goals, maybe refine our vision, and chart a course that feels both exciting and achievable.
So it's using reflection not just to look back, but also as a tool to plan for the future and navigate the journey ahead.
Exactly. And as we engage in this ongoing process of reflection, we become more intentional, more self-aware, and more equipped to create that life that truly aligns with our values, our passions, and our aspirations.
And that, I think, is the essence of Unstoppable. It's not just about reaching those specific goals. It's about cultivating that mindset, that way of being that empowers us to face our fears, to really embrace those challenges and to live a life that feels both meaningful and fulfilling.
It's a beautiful journey, isn't it? And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to encourage all of our listeners to really embrace the power of reflection. Take some time to pause, look back, celebrate your wins, acknowledge those challenges, and then, chart a course for the future that feels exciting and aligned with your truest self.
Wow, that deep dive into reflection was powerful. I feel like we've, I don't know, unlocked a whole new level of understanding about this journey that Unstoppable lays out. But before we wrap up completely, there's something I've been thinking about. We've talked a lot about personal growth, but what about the impact that this journey can have on, the world around us? How does that personal growth ripple outward?
That's a fantastic question. And it brings us to one of the most inspiring aspects of Unstoppable, this idea that personal growth, it isn't just about self-improvement. It's about sparking positive change in the world around us.
So it's like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. But how does embracing a growth mindset actually translate into making a difference in the bigger picture? I'm not quite following.
Well, think of it this way. As we become more self-aware, more resilient, more compassionate, more empowered, we naturally start radiating those qualities outward. And those qualities, they impact our relationships, our communities, and ultimately the world as a whole.
So it's not about trying to change the world single-handedly, but recognizing that our personal transformation can, create a ripple effect,
Yeah.
inspiring other people to embrace their own growth journeys.
Exactly. And as more and more people embark on this path of personal development, we collectively create a more conscious, compassionate, and empowered society.
But let's get practical for a second. How does Unstoppable suggest we take this personal growth and actually turn it into, tangible action in the world?
Yeah.
What are some concrete things we can do?
Well, one of the simplest but most powerful ways is just by sharing our stories. When we open up about our struggles, our triumphs, the lessons we've learned, we create this amazing space for connection, for vulnerability, and for inspiration.
It's like by being open and honest, we give other people permission to be imperfect too. We show them that it's okay to face those challenges and that transformation is possible regardless of where they're starting from.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
And those shared stories, they have this amazing power to spark a chain reaction. They encourage others to step outside their comfort zones, to challenge those limiting beliefs, and to go after their own dreams and aspirations.
I love that. So powerful. And beyond just sharing our stories, Unstoppable also talks a lot about mentorship and community building. We touched on this earlier. Can you talk a bit more about how those concepts contribute to creating a more positive world?
Absolutely. Mentorship, it's about taking what we've learned, our experience and wisdom, and sharing it with others who are maybe a little further behind on their journey. It's a way to pay it forward, empower the next generation of leaders, change makers, and innovators.
It's like passing the torch, right? Making sure that the spirit of growth and learning continues to burn brightly.
That's a great way to put it. And then alongside mentorship, we've got community building. Creating those spaces, whether online or in person, where people feel safe to share their struggles, celebrate their victories, and learn from each other, that's incredibly powerful.
Those communities can be anything from real-life gatherings to online forums, or even just a close-knit group of friends who get each other and support each other's dreams.
Exactly. What matters is creating that sense of connection and support that allows everyone to thrive and grow.
And as we do all of this, as we share our stories, mentor others, and build those communities, we really are contributing to a world that's more compassionate, more understanding, and more empowered to create positive change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Unstoppable makes this beautiful point. Personal growth, it's not a selfish thing. It's actually an act of service to ourselves, to the people around us, and ultimately to the world.
I love that. It's like as we grow and evolve, we naturally lift others up with us.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up this amazing deep dive, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes, absolutely. Here are a few key takeaways that I think really capture the essence of Unstoppable. First, remember that you are capable of truly extraordinary things. You have within you the power to overcome any challenge, to break through any barrier, and to create a life that is rich with meaning and fulfillment.
And second.
Second, embrace the journey. Remember that growth isn't a destination. It's an ongoing process of learning, evolving, and constantly becoming a better version of yourself.
And don't forget, you're not alone in this.
Exactly. Surround yourself with people who support you, who inspire you, and who celebrate your successes along the way. Find those communities that lift you up and remind you of your incredible potential.
And finally,
Never stop exploring, never stop learning, and never stop growing. The world is full of possibilities, and the only limits you have are the ones you place on yourself.
I love that. This has been such a phenomenal conversation, and I feel so inspired to continue my own growth journey and to find those ways to make a positive impact on the world. Thank you so much for joining us today on this deep dive into Unstoppable.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And to all our amazing listeners out there, until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep being unstoppable.